The girl lying by the bed. In 2005, following the end of my internship and my official graduation, I arranged with my close high school pal, A.L., to visit our friend, Xiaozi, who was studying in Shaoyang and on the verge of graduating. We chose to stay at a newly opened guest house near the entrance of Shaoyang University, assuming its relatively new state meant better hygiene. This street-facing guest house seemed to have been transformed from a former unit's staff dormitory. The boss led us to a double room on the third floor, as the guest house was only on the second and third floors, and we seemed to be the sole guests. Given its recent opening and the approaching school holiday, I considered the lack of business normal. For an off-campus guest house, the room's environment was passable. However, the sole drawback was that there was only one toilet per floor, located at the corridor's end. After a late night of enjoying ourselves, A.L. and I returned to the guest house to rest, while Xiaozi stayed in his dorm. Exhausted from our activities, we quickly washed up and collapsed onto our beds. At 2:10 a.m., a strong urge to urinate woke me up. As I prepared to get out of bed, I heard a woman's mournful sobs. In the quiet night, her cries were heart-rending, and I could even make out the gasps within. Curiosity got the better of me, despite my fear. I first went to the toilet and then stood in the balcony-style corridor, straining my ears. Certain it wasn't a dream, I looked down into the pitch-black yard but saw nothing. Back in the room, I woke A.L. Just as he mumbled an "ah," the crying ceased. He rolled over and went back to sleep, and the crying didn't resume, so I did the same. That night, I had a disturbing dream. I was pushed to the edge of the bed, and, upon opening my eyes, saw a long-haired woman pushing me. She claimed the bed was hers and demanded I leave. I protested, but she continued pushing. Terrified, I woke up in a cold sweat and watched TV until the first light of dawn and the sound of a rooster's crow. The next day, when I told Xiaozi and A.L. about the night's crying in my dream, they ridiculed me. They couldn't believe a medical student would spout such nonsense, saying I'd watched too many horror movies. I couldn't blame them. I'd likely have reacted the same way in the past. The second day was filled with more fun. At 1 a.m., the three of us, along with two of Xiaozi's classmates, returned to the room with numerous bottles of beer and a large quantity of late-night snacks. I thought more people and noise might counter the strange atmosphere, bringing me some peace. After Xiaozi's classmates left, and he and A.L. got drunk, I, the non-drinker, went to sleep. As soon as I dozed off, the previous night's dream continued. The long-haired woman was back, insisting I leave as I'd slept in her bed. She introduced herself as Tan Haiying, a Shaoyang University student, and said the place was hers and her boyfriend. Slightly less frightened, I promised to leave. Turning to wake the others, I saw a boy in a yellow basketball uniform lying between the beds. He introduced himself as Wang Ju and told us to vacate. Just then, a rather unattractive man with pimples and pits on his face entered. He was wearing a cheap suit and an odd pair of white sports shoes, a common look for some rural students on campus. He spoke to Wang Ju in Shaoyang dialect and then left. Wang Ju warned us again, and the girl pushed harder until I woke up at 3:30 a.m. When I shared this with A.L. and Xiaozi, they burst into uncontrollable laughter. Realizing they'd never believe me without experiencing it themselves, I left for home at 6 p.m. After a quick wash, I went straight to bed, telling my parents not to wake me unless it was urgent. I slept soundly until 11 a.m. the next day, glad to put those strange experiences behind me.